We're here really because we need to talk a little bit about something pretty important, which is an upcoming assignment for EDU 218 students in both sections, both my section, section 02, and Mrs. Bingham's section 01. So I want to give you some specifics around Google Classroom because it is a large assignment. It's worth quite a few points, I believe 125 total for the class, and it's kind of like a final project. So our Google Classroom assignment number 2 is going to take us out of the semester. You're going to demonstrate your understanding of the Google tools that you've been working so hard to become masters of through your training courses and your certification, and you're going to put them into practice into your own Google Classroom. If you remember, everyone created their own Google Classroom to start the year, and it's pretty sparse. You've been posting things here and there. But now in Google Classroom Assignment 2, it's when you're really going to make it specific to your content area and the 2 lesson plans that you've created so far for this class. So Assignment 2 is going to take us into that. I went a little too far. The overview for this particular assignment is linked in Brightspace. If you go into content and then week 11 and read these items, you can find the Google Doc that provides all these details. It's a large document because I said this is a pretty big assignment for the course. It's lengthy, so what I'm going to do is break it into each of the different sections, explain a little bit about those sections and what the expectations are for you to do. All the stuff that I go through in this particular Live from the Basement session is an assignment that's related to EDU 218. So sometimes I share some stuff that you don't have an assignment related to. This time you really do. So you need to open up this assignment in the week 11, read these items, read through it one time and see what's being asked of you. And once you do, start to map out your plan. This assignment isn't going to be due until close to the end of the semester. But I wanted to go through it now so you have these 3 or 4 or 5 weeks until it's due to start working on this because it's going to take some time. It's not an assignment you're going to be able to just put off until the last minute, crank everything out, and then get it turned in. You're going to have to be thinking about what tools you're going to incorporate into your classroom, and you're going to have to be working on a little bit each week. And since we're in the online environment and I'm not seeing you on a weekly basis in class to check up on you, you're going to have to take some responsibility for that. When am I going to do each section of it? So let's talk a little bit about each of the different parts. One of the things that you're going to do is you're going to use the Stream tab in Google Classrooms. It's the ongoing front page, but you just need to basically, within this page, select a theme to match your content. So if you're, primary art, maybe you'd have a bright and colorful art-related theme. If you're secondary ELA, maybe something more related to literature. If you're a phys ed teacher or a coach, maybe a theme that's related to the sport or some kind of physical activity. Make your theme of your classroom match what it is that you intend to teach. And for each of you, that's going to be different. So when I go in and look at the Google Classroom assignments, I shouldn't see a bunch of them that look like just the plain basic theme. You should match it with your content. Take some time to figure out how to do this. Google makes it pretty easy. And if you aren't sure how, then there's plenty of online tutorials that you can find on YouTube to help give you that information. If you find a good hack or a trick to get this done easily, share that in the Slack conversation. That's what that channel's for. Hey, I figured out how to do X. It was pretty easy. Here's what I used. Put that there so other people can benefit from it. We build knowledge collectively. You're going to need to, in the stream, provide an announcement to your class. It could be related to some of the other things that we have that we'll see in the other parts, but you want to announce something to your class so I see that you understand how to use Classroom for communication. You're going to eventually add a URL or a link to a website that's related to your lesson. You might have already included that in one of your lesson plans, and if you do have a website in your lesson plan that you plan to use, then that would be an ideal one to link here. And you're also going to eventually add a video related to your lesson. The video could be something that you find online at YouTube or Vimeo or any of those other services. It could also be a video related to something that you do with one of these tools that we've been using. So I'm going to share with you EdPuzzle in a little bit, and you'll have an idea of how EdPuzzle might work to fit and meet this requirement. The one thing I think that's going to be the trickiest for everybody is that the directions in this assignment are somewhat broad. You'll have to figure out how to take those broad parameters and streamline them to your content. So everything that I share here is going to be generic. You are taking this and relating it directly to your content. That's the important part of this assignment. So your classroom becomes whatever it is you told me you're going to be a future teacher of, and whatever you planned your lessons around. So we're going back to those lessons and we're adapting them into this online space, starting with the stream section. The next part is a little bit longer. It's got some similar pieces to it, but it's going to be under the Classwork tab instead of the Stream tab. So you're going to basically create an assignment that you're going to have for your students in your classroom. This assignment's got to include things like titles and instructions. It needs to have a little student-friendly rationale of why the lesson's important and what they're going to do. You need to make sure that you assign a due date, a point value, and do some things like put some attachments in there, a link in the video. So you can put similar things in the stream that you do in the classwork portion, but you need to make sure that you're incorporating outside resources into your Google Classroom. So part one is start with the stream and kick things off. Part two moves to the classroom where you're actually creating an assignment. That assignment should be related to one of the lesson plans that you've chosen. It might be related to both. There's a wide amount of area for interpretation here, so you're just going to have to kind of think through it and select what you feel will be the best assignment for either one or both of your lessons for part two. For part three, what we're asking is that as part of that assignment, you create a quiz. And we've worked with Google Forms, we've worked on making them self-graded, we've worked on adding feedback, providing links to videos or other links. All of those skills that you used on your substance abuse Google Forms assignment earlier are going to come into play here. So you're going to create a quiz that's related to your assignment, whether it's a quiz over the video that they watched or a quiz over it's whatever you had them read. This should be something that is again in alignment with your lesson plan. You're going to put it in that Classwork tab and include things again like title, instructions, due date, the point value. You need to make sure that you are using a link in that quiz and that you provide at least one attachment or a video as feedback or reinforcement. I'm not going to be as specific to say that every single question has to have feedback like we did in the substance abuse, but you need to make sure that you're leaving some feedback for students as part of that. You also need to make sure that you're letting students know if they're right or if they're wrong. Excuse me. Apologize. So that's part three. It's the self-graded quiz. I think that most of you had a really good handle on it from what I've reviewed in the self-assessment portal so far. So I don't think you'll have any problems completing part three, but it's going to take a little time to find your content and to develop your questions and to put them into the quiz builder or in Google Forms. The fourth point is more of related to a discussion question. So you're going to create a question, which is another option that you have in Google Classroom. That question needs to be related to your topic and have, again, the similar set of parameters. Give it a title, instructions, due date, and point value, but make it a discussion question where students have to read it, think about it, and then share either some facts or their opinion based on that, and then they'd be able to reply back to each other. So think of this as a threaded discussion type of activity in your Google Classroom. You've all probably had some experience with threaded discussions, so make sure that you leave the prompt open-ended and wide open so that students with a variety of different experiences can contribute to that, and the discussion that happens online allows students to relate all of their knowledge and understanding back to the topic of your lesson. It's a pretty simple one, shouldn't take too long, but it is the fourth part of the assignment. The fifth part is that you're going to create a material tab. The material tab is when we get a little more in depth here. You, of course, need to name the material tab and give it a description, and then you need to link in 5 different digital learning resources that you create for students to use. All right. This doesn't mean you find 5 YouTube videos or 5 websites that someone else created and link them in. This means things that you've created. So I've listed some examples here. It could be a screencast that you create to explain directions with Screencastify or one of the other screencasting apps that are on the Cool Tools sheet. You could create your own YouTube video that students might use. EdPuzzle, which I'm going to EduPuzzle, which I'm going to show you here again in the end, might be something that would fit in here. You could create an infographic that might give directions or be something that students read and interpret. That would count. Some teacher created audio is fine as well. So a podcast or audio materials that you use or that you create, again, using the tools. Maybe you provide an article for students to read, but then you also record audio of yourself reading that so that students not only can follow along and read on their own, but they can listen to you read. Something along that lines. We're going to work in week 12, which is next week, where we have a guest speaker come in and talk to us about an ebook creator. So you might use the ebook that you create. So if you think through this assignment and then approach week 12 with an open mind, you might be able to double dip here. And what I mean is you might be able to create an ebook for the week 12 assignment that also works as a link that goes into your Google Classroom assignment. So that, in essence, would take you down to only creating 4 digital learning resources that you have to do on your own rather than 5, because we are going to have an ebook assignment that's coming up next week. There's a wide variety of other materials that you can create as long as they're related to your lesson plan and you make them with the intent of helping them facilitate the lesson to students online. So be creative here. Go back to that cool tools sheet that we used a while back when we were looking at apps and doing the app reviews, and poke through that. If you've already used one of these apps to create something that's related to your lesson for a previous assignment, it's totally fine if you pull those resources out and put them into your Google Classroom. If you use those apps and didn't make something, at least you have some knowledge about how to use those, and you'll be able to put them to work in your Google Classroom, and it shouldn't be such a steep learning curve to complete the materials part, which is part 5 of the assignment. Finally, part 6, well, there's a few more parts, but if you're following along. But part 6, we'd like you to create some calendar reminders. So to help keep kids organized, your assignments have due dates and announcements have due dates. Go ahead and set up a couple calendar reminders that are related to those. Maybe you have a check-in point or a teacher conference, or you're scheduling Google Hangouts so that you can talk to your students even though you're separated by distance. But put those calendar reminders in the Classroom tab and make sure that you have at least 2 of those. Add one of them that's due the first week of May. So maybe your assignment might be due the first week of May, since that's towards the end of our semester. You're also going to add a file to a class drive folder and link that. So if you find a PDF or some other type of Word document that's related to your lesson that you might be expecting kids to use or download, you need to find that or create that, put it into your class drive folder, and link it up to your Google Classroom in the Classwork tab. So that's what part 6 is. Quick calendar items and making sure that you've found an external file. In part 7, you're just doing some kind of maintenance type of items. You're going to go into your setting tab and you're going to make sure that you've set the gradebook up, that you've set the gradebook so that students see the overall grade, that you've set the default points to 500. You're just going to go in and kind of fine-tune the gradebook to match with the assignments that you've created and put in your classroom. So this probably won't come in till towards the end of this particular assignment for you. You need to do it towards the end once you've got your media created and once you've got your assignments made and you kind of know what you're going to include in your Google Classroom. You're also going to want to make sure that in the Grades tab, you have the assignments listed, that you have given the correct point values, and that they're available publicly for students to be able to see. One thing that you should notice here is that when if you create an assignment, what you can use is the snowman or the 3 dots beside the name of each assignment to go in and edit that. So if you set up some holding place type of assignments to get started, you can always go back into those assignments and use those 3 dots to change the name of the assignment. And then finally, the last thing that you're going to do is you're going to read a couple articles regarding apps that integrate with Classroom, and you're going to integrate at least 2 of them into your classroom. Now, We had the previous part that said you had to create 5 of your own things to go into your assignment. And here we're telling you that you need to use 2 of these apps. So if you want to save yourself time and effort, I would maybe start with these particular articles and check out those apps and websites that integrate, see what you can build with them, and use 2 of them plus your ebook. Now you're at 3, and that means you're only creating 2 more items on your own that go with this particular assignment and need to go into your classroom. So you're going to have to read on your own and check these out and figure out how to work them. Also, take a look at the article 60 Smarter Ways to Use Google Classroom and see if you can identify 5 strategies to integrate them into your Google Classroom. Once you've completed all these things, the final piece of your Google Classroom is to write a reflection regarding it. I would prefer that you did it in a separate Google Doc and then you linked that Google Doc into the stream of your classroom so it's easy to find. I also have created a space on the self-assessment portfolio for you to provide the link to your reflection. So when you're turning in this Google Classroom assignment, you're going to give us the link that goes to your Google Classroom on the particular tab in the self-assessment portal. And then you also have a place to link your reflection. So you need to describe the apps and the strategies that you integrated and explain how and why you're using those. So that's what the reflection hinges on. Those are the main components of the Google Classroom assignment. Like I said, there's a lot of them. The best strategy is to go into the assignment document in week 11, read these items, open that document up, read through it, maybe get out your little notebook or a piece of paper and start sketching out what are your ideas for each thing. My video is going to be about this. My ebook might be about that. Other sites I might build in could be this. And start getting that planned out. Don't put it off until the last minute or you'll be up against the wall. You'll have other work for other classes to do, and it's going to be stressful. I feel like I'm providing all this information for you now. You've got 5 or 6 weeks left of class. You should have plenty of time to work through this a little bit at a time. It's up to you to manage that time. If you don't have ideas, that's a different issue. So if you're not sure what to do, then that's where you either reach out to me or Mrs. Bingham, or you put something in the Slack chat so people can start helping each other. But that essentially is the Google Classroom assignment. Here's the Google Doc that has everything on here, so you can kind of read through here. I tried to make everything with check boxes, so if you want to print this off or make a copy, you can physically check off that everything's been done. You can also do the left click, right click, and change it if you keep your own copy of this. So if you remember that from the previous screencast, you can check off items on your own. So it's a self-assessment strategy that we have here with these little check boxes in this assignment. The apps are in this article. It's from Common Sense Education, so you'll be able to read through these and see some of the options. One thing I did want to share with you though was a little bit about EdPuzzle. So give me a second to make sure I've got my music turned off and I can turn volume to my computer back up without blasting. I'm going to show you EdPuzzle now, which is a video creation site. I signed up for a free class using my own Gmail. And when I used the Gmail that was associated with my Google Classroom, it recognizes me, and once I'm into my account, which is a pretty simple process, I can view content from other people. I told it that my school was the University of Mount Union, and I'm actually able to go in there and see other people at the University of Mount Union that are creating content on EdPuzzle as well. You can see it says we have 14 teachers. But again, when I go back to my content, you can see that I'm working on a couple different videos here, and I'm going to show you exactly what EdPuzzle lets us do. I'm going to open up one that I've been working on, which is called History of Hip Hop, of course. And what I've done is I found a YouTube video. I scraped the URL and put it in here, and once I find the URL of that video, what EdPuzzle lets me do is it pulls in the embed, and it lets me watch the video. Make sure it's not too loud.
I ain't no joke. I used to let the mic smoke. Now I slam it when I'm gonna make sure it's broke.
When hip-hop created a musical landscape in the 70s, yeah, by giving
And if you look down here,
especially
You can see that there's little points. Now I've marked these points.
Foundation or a new start because we were just coming off the 60s where the entire city was bankrupt. That environment kind of gave birth to hip hop. Hip hop is a culture based on 4 foundational elements: DJing, MCing or rap, graffiti, and breakdancing. People use the terms interchangeably. Rap.
So it's reached a point that I've selected already, which is 38 seconds. And you can see now on the side, my viewers have a multiple choice question that says, which is not an element of hip hop? And I've got 3 choices: BMXing, MCing, or DJing. So I have to pick the one that isn't an element. And you can see the YouTube video isn't playing any further. It's just spinning. It's waiting for me to collect data from the students who's watching this. So we said hip hop was MCing, DJing, breakdancing, and graffiti. I don't think BMXing was one of those, so I'm going to check that and then click submit. And you can see that I've been able to get some feedback here for either right or wrong answers. And then when I click continue, should go back.
Rap with hip hop, whereas hip hop is the bigger culture. Rap is something you do. Hip hop is something you live.
And you can see I've got another
era, you know what I mean? We were
question coming up here.
We couldn't get into disco, so we had to recreate that disco. And that's what basically hip-hop started out as, like the bastard child of disco. I mean, it was our rebellion against that and our recreation of it at the same time. You see, I am Wonder Mike, and I like to say hello.
And again, I get to the pre-selected point, my multiple choice question comes up. So this is a pretty simple tool to use. I'm going to go back to my content and skip this though. Go back to my content and show you a little bit more about what happens when we edit this. So if I click on this and get back to the beginning, what I can do down in the bottom right hand side is go into the edit portion. And that brings up the complete video, which again I can watch in real time, along with the timeline. And it allows me to click on this questions tab down here and then move the playhead or move the scrubber ahead. Let's start this here. I'm going to move it ahead a little bit
to make sure
to a different point. And if I wanted to put a question in here, what I would do is stop the video here and then select, do I want a multiple choice, an open-ended, or do I just want to make a note? And if I select multiple choice, it gives me here, so what is this gentleman doing is a question. It allows me to select the right answer or the wrong answer. So I'm going to say selection 1 is b-boying. Oh, not b-baying, but b-boying. And maybe the right answer might be MCing, because he's MCing. And if I want to provide feedback, I can use this little feedback tool to say, this guy is not dancing, because b-boying is dancing. And I can flip back to my question, and since MCing, I could just say something like, you're right. You're right, exclamation mark. When I'm done with this, I can then click save. And what it will do is add another question into the video. It'll continue to play the video for me if I want, so I could watch it, and I can watch through the whole video and create the little quizzes. So EdPuzzle is something that's really easy. It's a really easy tool to use. You literally start at YouTube and copy the link to the video and paste it into the search, and then you can create. I'm going to finish this particular EdPuzzle now, go out of the editing mode. And one thing that you can do pretty easy is this has a Google Classroom integration. So when I click on my classes, I can either add a new class right in the website, EdPuzzle website, or I can link it to my Google Classroom. When I click on that, I have to tell it yes, school can consent, and I tell it continue. And what it's going to do is make that connection because it already knows my Google account. Hopefully it's just going to connect it to my Google Classroom. And it's going to ask me to authenticate in, sign into my Google account, grant it permission, which I will. tell it I want it to be this class. And you see it's building the integration over here. So it takes a little bit of time. You have to give it the ability to see your students' information. Now, since you don't have any students right now, you don't have to worry about any of the policy issues. But then it asks, which of the classes do you want to import? And if you had multiple classrooms in your account, of course, you would have to select the right one. Because I only have one classroom, it's related to this class, I'm going to select that and click Import Classes. And what it's going to do is import my student information. It's going to let me see those students eventually. So here are all the people that are in my class right now. You can see it imported them right in. And it allows me to actually create assignments as well. Either those that are due or those that don't have a due date. If I go back to my content tab then and look at my content, what I am able to do is when I go into my EdPuzzle, I can assign this EdPuzzle to my students in my Google Classroom by using the Assign tab. I can say, when's it starting? When's the due date? And give it a due date. Let's say you guys get a week to complete my puzzle. Click off of that. Oops, I don't know why it didn't. Must have to scroll down and click Save. 11:59. Can I prevent it from skipping? Can I turn all those things? I can do all of these different things. Tell it what class I want to add it to, and then I'm going to click Assign. And it's going to assign that to all of the students that are in my class. When you're ready, post it on Google Classroom then. And hopefully when I open my Google Classroom and go into my Google Classroom, what you should be able to see is that, let's refresh this bad boy. See what happened. Updated the stream hopefully, and we'll see that EdPuzzle assignment in my Google Classroom. If it's not in the stream tab, oops, here it is. I created a new assignment via EdPuzzle, History of HipHop. When I click on that, what you'll be able to see is that I can see all my students, who's done it and who hasn't done it. I can see my instructions. Alright, and I can see the link to my EdPuzzle. So the students would click on that EdPuzzle and they would go and take that. It would import the results back in there. So EdPuzzle is a great app. It's useful if you find a video that's related to the content that you want to teach, and then you create a short quiz from that. Again, using EdPuzzle to create a quiz based on a video is going to be considered a teacher-created video that you could then incorporate into your Google Classroom assignment. So you get to use one tool, and you get to check off the video box, and you have a piece of material that's related to your assignment. There's a lot of different ways that bringing EdPuzzle into your Google Classroom can satisfy a variety of requirements of that Google Classroom. That's it now. I see we don't have a lot of people live. It's kind of been a long one. I'm going to take you out like I always do. I'll wait around and see if there's any questions, but we always come in with the OG intro and we always kind of go out.